Welcome back to the Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and I want you to picture this: a young man on a California pier watching his ship steam out without him. Everything in his life, military discipline, family legacy, the weight of doing things right, hits a wall in that moment. Ron Beckner nearly missed the movement, and it shook him to his core. But what sets Ron apart is what happened next. He found a way back on board, literally and figuratively, clawing his way onto that ship and carrying that relentless work ethic born in the Navy. Hammered out in union pipe trades and tested in every damn transition since into everything he does. Now Ron's mission is to deliver what most of us never got: real, straight talk about money as a tool. For vets and working folks, he's the guy who'll show you the traps no one has told you about. This episode's for you if you've ever doubted you could learn something new, felt buried under life's transitions, or just want to stop feeling behind the financial eight ball. So let's get into it. Rom, brother, welcome to the show, man.
Hey man, how you doing, Adam? Good to see you, buddy. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I sure appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Anytime I get a chance to bring on folks like yourself who are out there spreading financial education, I do, because we were such a massive need for everybody in our country. It's just the fiscal education is terrible. Nobody knows how money works. We're all really sold lies growing up. So I'm really excited to dive into your story, man. Find out how you got into this and how you're helping our brothers and sisters become financially responsible and educated. So, first question, man, where'd you grow up and what inspired you to join?
Well, I actually grew up in Denver, Colorado area. My dad was a pipe fitter. My grandfather was a pipe fitter. And I always kind of knew I was going into the piping trades. But before that, I always knew I was going to go into the Navy. And I knew that because my grandfather was in the Navy. He had told me stories about the ship sinking underneath him from Japanese torpedoes. My uncles were in the Navy. I just knew, even when we were playing, guns around the house and playing the games as kids, I was always a Navy guy, which was kind of crazy, but I always knew. And sure enough, right out of high school, I joined the Navy, turned 19 in boot camp, and never really looked back, bro. Never really looked back.
Yeah, and so you spent 4 years in the Navy, and then you went four
Yeah.
years to the Coast Guard. So you're my second Coastie that I've ever had on here. So why that? Why that transition? Why that shift?
It's kind of funny. I ended up getting married in the last year when I was in the Navy. And out of that last year in the Navy, I was on board the USS Bellawood, and I was literally on shore less than 60 days out of 365 days. And that's hard on a marriage. It's hard on, a relationship. And I thought, let me join the Coast Guard because we were getting ready to have a baby. And I thought, I went back and I saw my dad. Work was not real good in the 80s in the construction industry. And, the pipe fitters just, it wasn't really going to pan out. And with everything going on, I thought, you know what? Let me just join the Coast Guard. And sure enough, that's what I did. They didn't bring my rank over. I had to basically start over at the bottom again almost. But that's me, man. I usually start from the bottom, work my way up at them every single time. But you know what? I never let it beat me, bro. I just keep going. And
And so then you end up back in the Navy, right?
what's that?
You ended up back in the Navy, right?
So I ended up back in the Naval Reserves, is what I did. So once I got out of the Coast Guard, I came back to Colorado. Work was much better. In fact, they were building Denver International Airport, and that was my first year as an apprentice there. I got on there, but the Coast Guard had a reserve unit that I would have to travel from Denver to Leavenworth, Kansas, but then they weren't going to pay me. I was going to have to do it for free. And I just thought, I got a family, I got responsibilities. I still want to serve my country, but I know there's opportunity with the Naval Reserve. And sure enough, I went there and got in with the Naval Reserve. And I did that for another 16 years. I mean, I got 24 years total service time, but I worked two jobs for 16 years. I was a pipe
Yeah.
fitter, started as an apprentice, got into the Naval Reserve, and was everything from a project superintendent all the way down as a pipe fitter to an apprentice. But, I was working as a naval reservist at the same time.
It's so funny to me that they sent you to Leavenworth, Kansas, as a Navy Reserve guy, and it's like a landlocked state. Like you think of the Navy, you think about like probably should be proximity to water somewhere there. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
uh,
Well, even our reserve center, being in Denver, Colorado, it's actually Aurora, and we were out of Buckley Air Force Base out there. But I mean, the unit that we had a great shop, and we did some really good projects for the fleet. One of the biggest ones we ever did is we were doing submarine brow building, where we would literally get the blueprints for these big brows made out of aluminum, and we did like I don't know how many of those we built. We probably built almost 10 of them, and we would ship them out to the fleet. And because it was so much cheaper for the fleet to have that versus hiring an outside contractor, they just had the naval reservists building them, and we had the shop to be able to do it. In fact, I built a video and everything showing that. We did lockers, we did bunk rack curtains. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that we did for the fleet, and we really put ourselves on the map in Denver.
yeah, man. So I want to understand because this show really is about telling transition stories and kind of just from my own experience when I got out of the Army, losing my identity and my purpose and feeling like I was alone in that, like I couldn't talk to anybody or ask for help, or that I was feeling that way on my own and I just had to kind of sit with it. You decided once to look at getting out of the Navy and then saw that the work wasn't great and went to the Coast Guard for another 4 years. So you had a little mini transition there from the Navy to the Coast Guard. I'm sure that was pretty easy to navigate because it's still going to the military, but then ultimately decided to go to the reserves. And I feel like that's its own unique transition in that, active duty is, I mean, really everything's done for you. You don't have to really think about it. Just kind of show up, do what you're supposed to do, get off work at the end of the day, probably go drink yourself to death and, rinse and repeat for however many years you decide to do that. However, you decided to go to the reserves to go back into the civilian workforce. Why didn't you stay active duty? What was it that changed your mind, that pushed you in that path? And then also you stayed for 16 years. So you're going to have another transition, leaving all of even the reserves behind, right? And really letting go of the military and starting to figure out who you are without kind of that part of your identity. Though I think you were kind of at an advantage working in a real civilian job, pipe fitting for 16 years, building some of that identity that maybe I didn't have a chance to build as just an active duty guy from 17 to 30. And so I just want people to hear your story and hear the thought process behind this, the challenges you faced, because I genuinely believe this is what I needed when I hit rock bottom. I was thinking about killing myself. I would have just heard two guys like you and I telling our stories and just exploring that. I think it would have helped a lot.
Absolutely. No, it's kind of funny because I can remember being in boot camp, and I just turned 19, and I thought, if I can commit to this for 20 years, I'm going to get some kind of a pension. Now, because I came from a background, if you will, of pipe fitters, my grandfather and my dad, there was going to be a pension there. So I'd already, even at a young age, kind of had the pension mentality where I was going to create something for myself, but I had to do it for me. So as I'm going through these transitions, as you're saying, it's kind of funny that was what kind of 19-year-old's thinking about retirement.
Right.
I mean,
Nobody.
not
I wasn't, certainly.
exactly, but for some reason I was, and which I really, God bless my dad for really putting that into me, because he was like, hey kid, here's what you're going to have to think about doing. You're going to have some kind of a trade that's got some kind of a pension, because when we get old, we're just not smart enough to save enough money to take care of ourselves. And that's always kind of stuck with me too, right? So as I'm going through the transitions, as you will, the Navy was one transition and trying to figure out, okay, here I am married, we're getting ready to have a baby, and work's not good for the pipe fitters. In fact, what was kind of funny at the time, I went back home to visit my dad. Well, he was in jail because of DUIs. And he's like, man, there's really, the work's not good right now, kid. And I said, okay. So then I started thinking, what am I going to do? And that was that transition into the Coast Guard. Once I got out of the Coast Guard, work was better. It was 4 years later. Everything's kind of cyclical, Adam.
Yeah.
And as that cycle kind of came back around and work was good, I knew that, there was going to be some building going on with DIA, with powerhouses, with a lot of things going on. I knew the opportunity was there. So, I think a lot of people don't think about the trades in the military. And even the UA right now, the United Association, has what they call helmets to hard hats. It's a
Yeah.
program
It's
that they
awesome.
literally
Yeah.
provide where guys like you coming out can get into the trades, understand what the trades are. Because, a lot of us, we do want to go to college. And I did get a college degree, but I did it while I was working as a pipe fitter welder, going to college at night and working during the day. And because I was raising a family and doing things, I could not use my GI Bill. I didn't use it in the window that they provided me. So, I got a student loan and I ended up paying for it myself. But the funny thing about it, going through these transitions, you're just trying to figure out how to survive more often than not, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
really what it's about. Because usually, if you're getting out, you've either done enough time where you got a belly full and you're done, or it's like, you know what? I want to do something else in life. And hopefully you've already had that foresight and have that direction that you're going. But for those of us who don't have that direction, that's where, it gets a bit psychologically debilitating,
It
if you
really
know what I
does.
mean, right?
It really does. Yes.
And
It's
I
so
mean,
debilitating.
you saw it in Rambo, right? I mean, here a guy is, he's been in charge for years of, $1 million pieces of equipment, and they're depending on his talents to do all this great thing. He gets out in the real world and he's just a big nobody, which, that's when people start treating you like a nobody. And our mentality, we got to get through that, man. And that's really why I love your show, because it lets people know, hey, there are people that can help you get through whatever you're going through, right?
That's it. That's it.
So I just love being here.
Man, I love that you said that. I had a mini epiphany last week. I came to this. It's people are the key to success. Systems, strategies, and tools mean nothing without the right people around them. The right people open doors, expand vision, and multiply impact. The wrong people drain time, energy, and purpose. My mission is to build with and for the right people, because success isn't just what you create; it's who you create it with. It's the biggest lesson I've learned, man, is people. We are meant to be around people. People are meant to, and I love everything that you're talking about. The trades, the knowing early at 19 that you should be focused on retirement. That's all shit. And you as a financial professional really going to hate this. I had a squad leader early in my career who told me never to invest in TSP because it was not a good thing to invest in. I find out 13 years later that that was the biggest mistake I could have ever made, because now I don't have a TSP. I just didn't have the knowledge, man. I didn't even know what it was, right? Like investing money where I come from was not really ever talked about, because everybody is struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, trying to put food on the table, just doing the best that they can. I'm from rural Indiana, from the farm towns, you know what I mean? And we grew up pretty poor. And again, so as a young man, 17, 18, when I joined, I had no idea. I had no idea what retirement was. I was like, well, retirement looks like do 20 years with the Army and you're good to go, right? So that's my thinking. I'm not thinking about the trades. However, I've seen the value of having a trade because my father has worked with his hands his entire life, and he could have done a lot better for himself, I think, if he would have kind of expanded his box and maybe, stepped outside and tried entrepreneurship. However, I can't sit here and say that he hasn't, you know, built himself a pretty great life that he seems content with just through fixing commercial kitchen equipment for the last 30 years.
Okay.
You know,
Well, and this is what you're bringing stuff up, which I built my financial star process. And one of the biggest things is I tell people you've got to surround yourself with these professionals, right? You get a financial advisor, and what's totally different about me, Adam, is because I came through the trades, because I came through the military, I know the lack of education that's out there, man. I totally get it. So that's why I wrote a book called A Blueprint and Financial Guide for the Working Class American, to try and get the word out there, to just give people, a little bit of knowledge of what to do, because money truly is a tool. Everybody likes to say, "Oh, I don't have any money." Well, do you work? If you work, you have money, right? And I
Right.
don't care if you take a little bit of it, it's still a tool. And let me show you where to put it to work, or work with somebody who can help you put it to work. It's not just something we make and spend. Yeah, we got to make it. Yeah, we got to spend some, but we got to understand that it is a tool. So going back to what you were saying about surrounding yourself with people, you got your financial advisor. Then you got to have a good tax professional. That's up here at the top point of the star. Then you also have to have a good legal professional. You got to have your legal documents in order. But the legacy point of my process is, what are we teaching our children? Because
Yes.
I didn't get the education on money from any of my family, because they didn't know how to do it either. They were just like yours. Everybody's living paycheck to paycheck, bro. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. I see this. I just had a conversation with a very good friend of mine. He's an Alaska pilot, and he's coming into this point in his career where he's making ridiculous amounts of money, and he's taking guidance from some of these these more senior captains who are making like $47,000 a month, flying around, and they're all telling him, it's like, dude, at some point you have to learn how to hide money. You have to move money around. And so he's telling me the story about buying 35 chickens, and he's got 4 kids, and they're all of an age where he can pay them up to like $13,400 a year, and put that into a Roth IRA for them. And how by the
Good.
time they turn 18 years old, they'll all be millionaires just selling some eggs from their chickens. And it's like, these are the things that nobody teaches you until you seem to run into the amount of money, through a career, or a windfall or a lottery or whatever. It's like, why should we should know about these things from day one? I should have been taught these instead of learning how to balance a checkbook in high school, which I'm sure they don't teach anymore. Somebody should have told me like how money flows, how I can build, wealth through compound interest. I didn't hear the word compound interest until I was in my mid 30s. That's a problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're all playing a game here, Adam. Really, in this country, it's a game that we're forced to play. And I like to tell people, listen, here's the basic rules. There's 4 tax quadrants and 3 buckets of money, right? The employee and the small business owner, we will pay the highest taxes. That's all there is to it. It's how the system's built. If you have 500 employees or more, you pay a little bit less, but the investor pays the least tax. And you got to understand that part of the rule. Now, the 3 buckets of money are the taxable. This is our paycheck. This is where we make money in individual accounts and joint accounts, and the interest that we may pay. But as an investor, it's still a lower tax rate. Then there's the tax deferred. There's your TSP. This is your 401k. This is your traditional IRA. And then there's the tax free. And I love tax free, bro. That's where the
Everybody.
Roth comes in. You mentioned that guy's doing that for his kids. And that's a great thing to be looking at. But there are other tax free things out there, like an IUL or even whole life insurance, that there's opportunities to put money away. And as long as you don't pack so much in the drawer that the drawer won't close, the government can't see it and they can't control it. And
Yeah.
that's what I start teaching people. So, I go back to what I put in my book. We as working class Americans may not have as many zeros behind our numbers as the wealthy or ultra wealthy, but if we do exactly what they've been doing for generations, even at a smaller scale, the result will be exactly the same for us, right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Add
sir.
one more
And
add one more zero to our number, Adam, and that's life changing for every single one of us.
yeah, and you just said it, man. Like, how how did you go from being a Navy guy to a Coast Guard guy to then the reserves for 16 years as a pipe fitter to saying, fuck it, I want to educate people on finances. I want to put this program together. That seems like a stark contrast, right? Like
Yeah,
somebody who's
yep,
out there, fucking welding all day, and coming home fucking. I love welding. I'm not good at it, but and I'm
right.
just an amateur welder. But there's something. about it for me that's kind of cathartic. I could actually, before when I first got out of the Army, I found out I could actually go to flight school and become a pilot. I was almost resigned to the fact to go to the pipe fitter school in Seattle and become an underwater welder because I knew it was lucrative and I knew it would probably be something. I had messed around with building my own custom bobber in my buddy's garage. I learned how to MIG weld. I experimented with some TIG welding on some aluminum, which did not go well at all. And I was like, this is actually not so bad. Like, I think that I could enjoy doing this. Yeah, I get it. Like, it's going to be underwater. It's going to be tough. It's super dangerous. But like, I was just an infantryman for 13 years. Went to war 4 times. Like, how dangerous could it be? Really? Like, I'm used to that. And then, long story short, I got into flight school, so I left that behind. But to just pivot completely into teaching people how to manage their money, to grow their money. You mentioned a couple of products. I went into the insurance industry when I first became an entrepreneur, thinking that was how I was going to make all my money. I ended up in the wrong side of that business and the scummy side, feeling like a piece of shit. But I did learn about whole life and IULs, and then that even pushes even further into the infinite banking concept, where you become your own bank and you borrow against your policies, and then
Bingo.
you're not only are you paying off a loan that you loan to yourself, but you're also paying yourself interest on that loan, and then it starts to compound, and then before you know it, you are one of the ultra wealthy, and you fund literally your entire life. I still don't understand how that works on a granular level because I did leave the insurance industry before I could dive all the way into that and have more of the knowledge. But just how did you make this pivot? Like, what pushed you to do this? Like, why?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And, it's kind of funny because as I went up in the ranks of the pipe fitters, I always consider myself a leader, Adam. I never consider myself a boss. In fact, I hate when people call me the boss. I don't want to be a boss. What I want to be is a leader. I want to be able to set the pace. I want to show people. I want to teach them. And that's what leaders truly do. They don't make you do anything. They guide you and lead you. And it's kind of funny. I was working at the Black Hills power plant when I met my wife. And we'd been dating for a couple of years, not a couple of months. And after a couple of months, she's been in the financial industry for over 40 years now. And she says, "Hey, have you ever thought about being a financial advisor?" I'm like, "What are you talking about, man? I work on pipe, I lead men, I work on steel." And she says, "There's something about you that you can't teach in the financial industry. And you might want to think about it." And I was going to college at night to get my business management degree. And I thought, yeah, whatever. And ended up with a job opportunity in Hawaii to work for the Department of the Navy over there as a pipe fitter welder. So we moved and I finished up college over there. And my wife still was working in the financial industry. And she was working with another financial advisor. And that financial advisor said, "Ron, after I known you a while, you might want to consider this." And I'm like, "What is it?" And they're like, "You just have a way of being able to talk to people, and your background really does have a uniqueness to be able to talk to the working class American." And I really got to thinking about that. I thought, man, I've made millions for companies by being the project superintendent or the general foreman or the foreman. Can I actually make money for people? And once I got in the industry, I got accepted and got my Series 766 and really started working. It really started resonating with me that I could communicate with a working class American. And it was amazing what they didn't know, right? Because I didn't know it. And as I got to know it, all of a sudden I got working class people that I'm working with, and I'm like, "Oh my God, let me show you this. Let me teach you the difference between a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. Let me tell you why you want to have money in a 401k when the company's matching you. Take their free money. I'm trying to
Yeah,
explain things, right? I mean,
seriously,
you didn't even know about the TSP, and it was like,
yeah.
"Oh, dude, you missed out on cash."
Yeah. But dude, it's like I said, I was talking to my buddy last night. Alaska matches 17%. That's ridiculous. It's another. If you just do the math, we were talking about his captain buddy who's made $47,000 this month.
Bingo.
That's another $5,000, more than $5,000 that they're putting into your 401k. So it's like you're getting paid an extra $5,000 that you just can't touch for a little bit. Like, I think if you're making 47K a month, you should be okay. And then knowing that you're putting another almost 8 grand into your 401k because they're matching, it's like, it's a game, man. And I love that you're out there doing it. I actually put myself in a position to do Series 6, 63, 66, and 7 when I was in the insurance industry. It never came to fruition. And I'm kind of glad I didn't because I don't think I'd ever pass the test. It was just too boring for me. So I'm glad there's people like you out there because I'm very much the guy that's like, I'm never going to know all this. I need to go pay Ron to help me do this. And there's nothing wrong with that because the money I invest in Ron is actually investing money in myself because I will be set up for life later.
And that's exactly right. And that's why I wrote the book, Adam, right? Because I need people to realize that, think about this. If you have a toothache, do you get online and try and figure out how to fix your tooth? You're going to drill it and fill it and do all that? Or do you just call a dentist, somebody who can get it done, right? Have a
That's it.
professional. And I'm the same way, right? Look, money is a tool. And if you really have the time and the ability to dive into it, to start doing it on your own, hey, more power to you. But most of us working class Americans are busting our asses at our job. We're just trying to make ends meet. We want to get home at night, be with our family, chill out, have a beer or a drink or whatever, and just kind of rejuvenate that night and then get up the next morning to go do it again. I don't need to come home and delve into the internet and try and figure out what Nvidia did or, whatever did, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And is what's kind of funny. I had a client of mine before he was a client. We were talking, and he said, "Yeah, come on over, man. I want to show you this great camper that I got." So we came over, and man, he had this beautiful fifth wheel camper, and he's telling me, "Man, the sewage holds this much, the tire pressure's this. I've got this water holds this, and my AC does that." And I'm like, "Man, what did this thing cost you?" He said $35,000. I said, "Man, that's a pretty good deal. You know quite a bit about this." Now you told me at work you have a $500,000 in your 401k. Tell me what you have your money in. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, you just told me everything from tire pressure right down to this $35,000 investment. Tell me about that $500,000 investment. Tell me about all the details on that. Well, I don't know. I said, isn't that
Mm,
weird? Isn't that
right.
odd, bro, that you can sit there and tell me about the one thing, but you can't tell me about the majority of your retirement money and what it's doing for you? Yeah, man, I totally see that. So this is that education, right? They tell us, hey, put your money into a 401k, and I'm all over that. But then there's going to be some stuff coming down the road, Adam, that I want people aware of. And we got to look at what's happening in this country and look at that usdebtclock.org, right?
Let's talk about it, man. Dive in. Tell
I'm
me all the
I'm
things.
telling you,
Let's just give them everything that they need to know, start to finish, right now. What is it you want them to get out of our conversation today? What is it that you want them to walk away knowing? What are some actionable things that they can do starting today after they listen to this that they can start moving themselves in the right direction? Because look, I have a buddy. He's largely responsible for me pursuing building my own life, becoming an entrepreneur, and all of that. And his one statement is like, I'm going to take all of my money and I'm going to put it in things that then have go out there and have little money babies. And my money babies are just going to go have money babies. And it's just going to keep growing and growing. Like my money should always be working for me. And I think that's a super powerful statement because most of us, myself included, and it's so hard to break away from, we're so driven by chasing money instead of letting money go work for us. We don't know how to delay gratification. We don't know how to sacrifice in the short term. And it really is a short term. There are so many vehicles out there that are shorter term, not 30, 40 years. You're talking 5 or 10 years that can really set you apart. And then you can start living your later years in life without working till you're 60 or 72 now basically, and then dying 8 years later because when did you have time to enjoy all of this? I just walk us through the whole thing, man. What do they need to know? What's coming down the pipe? What should they be paying attention to? Where should they be putting their money? Also touch on crypto if you have any knowledge about that, because I think that is a huge kind of emerging market that people want to invest in, but they can also really get screwed. So let's just have it all, man.
Well, first and foremost, I'm going to give you a little background because you brought something up, and that is time keeps on ticking. And my dad taught me on my very first leadership job. He was my general foreman. On my very first foreman job, he said, listen, kid, if you give these folks time, they can build anything in the world. But time is an acronym, stands for tools, information, material, and equipment. If you're missing any one of those four elements, it's going to be impossible to get the job done. Now, I turned around and I added an R, Adam, because time is real, bro. That clock only goes one way. And it
That's
seems
it.
like the older we get, the faster that son of a bitch goes,
Every year, man. I'm
right?
sitting here. How is it already September 16th? It feels like yesterday was New Year's Day.
Yeah. And then I trademarked it. So I trademarked that. And that's part of my process because the tools are the education that I have, but it's also the people that I'm working with. It's their education. And I don't care what level they are. This is where we start collaborating together, right? So when you're asking, what's one of the first things people can do? First and foremost, be aware of what your situation is, and then find somebody who will collaborate with you, who will help get you to that next level, right? Somebody who's not going to judge you, who's not going to sit there and say, oh, yeah, I'm better than you. No, who's somebody going to get down right at you at eye level and say, hey, man, let me get you to where I can help get you so you can understand this. The information is the broker dealer and everything that I know that is out there that can put your tool called money to work, right? Because
Yeah.
money's just a tool. So you said, hey, I want to get my money out there. It's got to be working for me all the time, making little money babies, and they should be working all the time. You're exactly right, bro. Somebody told you money's a tool, and you grabbed a hold of that and you realize that is a true statement, right?
Yeah.
Instead of us chasing the dollar should be doing everything it needs to be doing for us. We still want to go to work. We still have to have a livelihood. We have to have a reason and a why, if you will. Let's go back to that why. And that's what it's about. Now, the equipment is obviously my office, my computer, my telephone. Hell, it's even my vehicle. I've been known to get in my truck and go sit at somebody's kitchen table and talk to them about their situation, right? And
Dude,
that's where my
have to.
our time formula comes in. And this is the first thing that I want people to get to know is what their personal situation is. Find somebody that they can trust, that they know is going to get them to that next level, and start explaining to them what their money can truly do for them. Because right over here, I got goals, and goals can be long term and short term. And man, I love that you said a lot of things that happen can happen in 5 years or less. I tell a lot of people all the time, even when I got in this trade, I remember telling my wife, you got to give me 5 years. Give me 5 years, babe. And she's like, why 5 years? I said, because that's my apprenticeship. I don't know if you know how many hours it takes to become an expert,
It's like
but
10,000. Yeah.
10,000 hours.
And I love that you're touching on this because we often overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, but underestimate what we can accomplish in 5 years. I'm really I've been at this for 2 years building this brand, which has created more opportunities for me in other avenues that aren't relevant to this conversation. However, part of my process at the end of my first year, I evaluated everything that I had done in that year, and I actually found out that I had actually underestimated what I was capable of figuring out in 1 year. And so I just started to apply that to the next 4 years or the next 5 years after the first year. And it's like, if I'm underestimating at 1 year, what holy shit, what does 5 years look like? And
Bingo.
when you actually sit down and you write out everything on a piece of paper that you have accomplished, whether you hit everything or not, because inevitably you're going to forget things, and you really take stock of, hey, I did that, and then you can apply that to so many other things, like your money, like all that. Like, it doesn't, as you said, time starts ticking faster the older we get. That's a perspective thing. It's a very true thing. Most people who are aging will tell you that, like, time at 40 goes so much faster than time in my 20s. it really becomes like, man, 5 years is not a lot of time. I can do anything for 5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, and is what's funny, if you think about it, and that's why I have goals. You can sit there and have dreams. And the difference between dreams and goals, or I set goals and that's a target and that's something that's achievable. Dreams are something that you wake up from.
That's it.
I would rather have a goal set and be going after that goal. And even if it's a baby step, bro, we are moving forward. And that's the key, right? And what are we doing? The clock's ticking anyway. Why don't we just take those baby steps? And it goes back to exactly what I teach people. I mean, if you are in a situation where you're making 60,000 a year and you're spending 80, you don't need my help. You
Right.
need, somebody else's help, one of the gurus that can teach you how to get out of debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you really want to put some money to work, and again, I had a newspaper guy tell me when I first wrote my book and I took it to him, and his dad was in the financial services business, and he read my book and he comes to me, he says, Ron, man, you're different. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, the way you write your book, you'll take anybody. I said, well, yeah. If I don't take the young kid or the young person or anybody that has $100, how are they ever going to learn? If I wait for them to get 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever my freaking level is going to be, how will they ever learn if I don't teach them? And that's really how I'm looking at this, Adam. That's why I wrote the book, man. I will help people from the very ground and work their way up. And I think that's what, because of where I come from, that's why I have been successful. That's why, here I am on your show talking to people, reaching out, saying, hey, what do I have to do, Ron? First and foremost, you find the guy who's going to help you. The 5 points on my star is to make sure you're going to surround yourself with these professionals, that you're going to put your money to work, and you're going to protect your life, your health, your wealth. And you can protect your wealth from down markets as well as taxes by employing strategies that I know I can teach you.
I love it, man. I love it so much because so many of us are just completely lost when it comes to this shit. One of my favorite quotes ever from somebody that I follow pretty religiously is Cody Sanchez. She's in the buy boring businesses market, and she's got some very valid points as the boomers are all just turning over their businesses and kids don't want to run them. You got pretty incredible opportunity. What she says about money and about her mentor that's a multi-billionaire, he said, money is a fickle bitch. If you don't pay attention to her, she'll leave you. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's the person who's making 60K a year and spending 80K because we get caught up in the living with the Joneses. I got to have that brand new car that just came out at 9.5, 10% interest, because that's literally where we're at in society today. And you talked about getting in the truck to go sit with a family. Fuck, a truck costs $70,000 for a base model now. Like
Right.
that's what a house. My first house I ever bought was only $60,000 more
My
than that.
dear.
You know what I mean? It's like we have been conditioned to just keep pumping money into the system and living off of credit instead of paying attention to where our money is actually going, delaying gratification, sacrificing in the short term, being look at this point, I've funded everything that I've built. I haven't made any money. I started making money a few months ago. So hadn't made money in the larger part of 2 years. So I'm used to living paycheck to paycheck. Now I have this, ability to put money away and make it go work for me. I could do that for another 5 years to set myself up. I can live the way that I've been living most of my life for another 5 years, knowing that the goal that you said, the tangible target that I can hit, it will change my life. And I want other people to understand that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love that you're saying pay attention. My dad, God, I can remember, God bless that man, because he told me from the youngest age, pay attention, pay attention. And it was pay attention to everything, right? I mean, what's going on around you? Look at the people, look at what's happening. Pay attention to what's happening with the usdebtclock.org, right? $37 trillion is what they're saying right now is that. But the unfunded liability of over $200 trillion is what scares the shit out of me, right? And this is where I go back to the taxable dollar, tax deferred, and tax free. Adam, do you know what the highest tax rate in this country, what it was and when it was?
Wasn't it close to 50%?
It was 94%, bro.
Jesus,
It
that's
was
ridiculous.
it was in 1944. 1944, it was right after World War II. This country's debt was ridiculous compared to the time. And it's when Ronald Reagan was making movies. He made $100,000 a picture, and he would only make two pictures a year because if he made that third picture, Uncle Sam took $94,000. California took the other six. Right?
Yeah,
He'd been working for free. I just believe, this is my gut feeling, that's probably what drove that man into politics, is because that's what he had to live with. But then we have to put it into perspective now, Adam. What we have to think about is, okay, wait a minute, man, that's $200,000 in 1944. What is that, $3.8 million today? That ain't us. That's not us working class Americans. So now put it into perspective. That would mean back then, us working class Americans would have a 42 to 47% tax rate, right? That's going back to what I said. Our tax rate, we're giving half our money to the government that we're working for. Right now, we look at 37% as a high tax, right? That's the highest tax rate right now. And we're like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. How'd you like 47? And that's the middle of the road, right? That's a
I don't like
livable
either one of
wage
them.
tax.
Yeah, I don't like either one of them. So you
Absolutely
get,
not.
particularly now.
And we just have to be aware. And the
Mhm.
awareness is going to come. I want you to prepare for the worst. Man, we've been in the military. We know what it's like to prepare for battle. We don't go in shorts and flip flops with a boom box on our freaking shoulder thinking that people are going to love us. We're going in to protect our asses, right? We're going in to win. And that's what I'm trying to teach people. Even in my book, in the last chapter, I talk about my ship, the USS Bellawood. And it was an amphibious attack. So when we were fully deployed, we had 2,000 Marines and 980 Navy. And we would go into the hot zones because we had to get those soldiers in close. And literally, I was in charge of the ballasting system. So I'd literally raise the stern gate, which is the whole back of the ship. I'd sink it to bring the water in. And then in the movies, you see the boats that hit the beach and drop the ramp and everybody runs off. Those are the type of boats we had inside the ship. And I was in charge of doing all that. Well, they ended up sinking her off of the coast of Hawaii to turn it into a reef, and just because she was old. Anyway, when they went to sink it, they hit her with torpedoes and missiles and guns. They did everything they could, and she would not sink because of the way she was built. And this
Mhm.
is what I want people to get their head around. I want their portfolio to be built just like a naval ship with watertight integrity, because life is going to hit us with torpedoes. Life is going to hit us with missiles. We're going to go through bad weather. We might take on some damage. We might take on some water, but we will not sink. And the only way they can sink the Bellawood was to explode her from the inside out, break her back to get her to go down. And in that way, I want people to realize you will be the only one that'll sink your ship. You go in and you break her back, you'll sink it. But if you do it the right way and just use money as a tool, you're going to be able to have something. That's my our time process. You give me time, I'll get you through retirement and give you something to pass on to heirs.
I love it, brother. Tell everybody how they can find your books, how they can reach out to you if they're interested in your service, if what you've said here today motivates them to start investing in themselves,
Absolutely.
and
So you
I
can,
want them to find it.
yeah. So my book is a blueprint and financial guide for the working class American. It is available on Amazon, and you can also hear it and listen to it on Audible. Got a great guy that reads it out of Florida. He was a radio personality. It really does justice, but I've got some examples and illustrations inside the book that you just can't see if you're listening to it, but it's an easy read. I don't talk over anybody's head. It's an easy listen, 2 hours and 22 minutes. If you're on a little road trip, it's really a good listen. You can find me at Ron at peaks-integrity.com. You can look at my website at peaks-integrity.com. You can call my office at 719-581-7325. And if they mention your podcast, I'm going to give them a free book. First 10 people, they're going
I
to get a
love it,
free
brother.
book from me.
Dude, hey, knowledge is power. So that's pretty enticing offer.
I'm going to correct you, Adam. I'm going to correct you on that. And I've always said this: knowledge is not power. Applied knowledge is power, bro.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Right?
I love that, but I'll take that correction all day, brother. It begs the question, though. You talk about the book. I gotta believe. Have you read any of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff?
Say that again.
Have you read any of Kiyosaki's stuff, particularly the cash flow
Oh
quadrant?
yes, I
The
love
cash flow
Rob. I
quadrant.
love Robert Kiyosaki. I, it's kind of funny. I love David McKnight. I love Robert Kiyosaki. In fact, once I read their books, that's what inspired me to write mine. Right?
Okay, great.
Because
I was Robert Kiyosaki's The Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant are the ones that really changed my life when it comes to everything. Really, Cash Flow Quadrant. I thought Rich Dad Poor Dad was kind of like a tease. Like it's not really giving you any substantial, actionable knowledge. It's just kind of explaining the mindset shift you have to have. But then you get into Cash Flow Quadrant, and when you actually start looking at those illustrations and seeing how he explains how you're getting robbed of all of your money, it's like, man, this is so in addition to your book, I would like to push people to read, particularly knowing that your book was inspired by their stuff. That's even better. Go get that knowledge and then learn how to apply it, because what you're saying, Ron, it's so true. Applied knowledge, that's the key. That is the power.
yep,
Ron,
yep.
thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your time and just willing to educate our brothers and sisters on just one of the many things that nobody is seeming to push on or educate us on when we get out. They just kind of left us out to I really appreciate your time, man. Please, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, rate, review, subscribe, and download. Go visit his links. Take advantage of the first 10 of you to get a free book. I promise you it will unlock a lot of things for you, and I haven't even read it yet. Just knowing that he's based it off of Kiyosaki's stuff. And we'll see you guys with another awesome episode next week. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.